to Hanoi.
Hanoi area. But of course, the port names aren't the same as the towns you're going to visit. So we're going to be looking today at Hue.
Oh, today.
It was interesting because I heard somebody publicly call it Hue, but it's Hue.
Huế.
All right, so we're going to look at the imperial city. Okay.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about the tombs, the royal tombs. Now, there were 13 emperors in the Yuan dynasty. And 7 of them built their tomb complexes along the Perfume River. Can't seem to find out where the other 6 went. So that's best I can tell you. I haven't seen any writing on that. So as I said before, it's the last dynasty, lasted 143 years. You can read the numbers, but just as easy. That is Jialong. He was the founder of the dynasty, which lasted until 1945. What do you think happened in 1945?
Country
The
divided in
Viet Cong.
half.
No.
The Viet
World
Cong.
War II. World War
And
ended.
in 1945, the Emperor Bao Dai
Bao Dai.
basically conceded to Ho Chi Minh's representative. And that was the end of
Vietnam War.
the Nguyen dynasty.
Cái chữ gì đó.
All right, here are some of the emperors there. Again, Jialong at the top. Now you see the succession many times goes from father to son, but not always. Now, one of the more interesting ones there is Duc Duc. Probably pronounced wrong. If you're Vietnamese, feel free to see me anywhere, give me the proper pronunciation. I've been butchering French for years. So Duc Duc is very interesting. He was the nephew of Tu Duc. Now, the reason why we went to a nephew there instead of a son was because Duc Duc had smallpox as a child. And as a result, he was sterile. So while he had queens,
Chicken box.
while he had 300 consorts, he never fathered any children. So that was the first interesting one. Now, Duc Duc himself was interesting because he only was the emperor for 3 days. So the people who made him the emperor, 3 days later decided they want him out. They deposed him and sentenced him to death, all within a period of 4 days. Now the next one that was a little interesting is Hiem Ho.
Kiếm phúc.
All right, he lasted a whole 4 months as emperor. Now what did he do that made people mad? Well, he went to the French and he made Vietnam a French protectorate,
Okay, yeah.
which ultimately caused them to become deeper and more ingrained in Vietnam. So he was deposed and then he committed suicide. So those are some of the more interesting people. Okay, now who else here is interesting? Oh, Bao Dai. Okay, Bao Dai was the last emperor, and again, he was the one that surrendered to the representative from Ho Chi Minh, which ended the dynasty. All right, so let's take a look at some things. We're going to start off with the imperial city.
Chụp hình.
Around the 19th century, Jialong said to his advisors, find me a place to build our capital city. And they went out and they looked and they decided that the best place to build the palace and a citadel around the palace was in Hue. And more specifically, they wanted to build it near the Perfume River. Now, as I said earlier, some people, the Vietnamese people looked to China for a lot of culture. In fact, there was a lot of cultural appropriation. Today, that's kind of become a bad thing. But I don't understand why people would say that. You need to learn from other people. You need to learn from other cultures, and that's exactly what the Vietnamese did. So, they built the city and they faced it towards the east, or the Perfume River. Key difference here, the Forbidden City in Beijing faces south.
Bên trên kia sao?
Mình face
So,
east.
for 400 years, you became a great landscape and cultural site. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Many of you will go there. All right, so 2 pictures, a Google map, and one from the Asian Historical Society to give you a sense of the Imperial City Complex. About 5 kilometers square, 1.93 miles square, or 5 hectares. You look, you'll see there's 3 squares there. A larger gray square. Inside of that, you'll see a gold square, and inside of that, a purple square. Inside most one, the purple square, this is the equivalent of the forbidden area. That is where the royal family and nobles and children would live and work. All right, so anything outside the gray square was really the city citadel along the Perfume River. And can you see the parallels between the diagram, again, and the Google Earth? Here basically is the Perfume River. You can see there's basically a moat all around the city. And here's basically the entrance. Not the one you will use, but one of the entrances. Okay, so as I said, the purple one is the Forbidden City. Okay, that's loose. Who's in the Forbidden City? Emperor, royal family, wives, consorts, concubines, servants, and eunuchs. Now here's what's interesting. If you're a young prince, and there were many of them, when you reached the age of 16, you were thrown out of the Forbidden City, the center section. You're gone. And I assume that's because at the age of 16, your thoughts are starting to turn to the ladies. And of course, the emperor has a lot of ladies. So you're gone, son. All right, now here's the entrance most tours will go in. The moat is over here in this section. So you walk across this bridge. You'll go through that bastion into the outer citadel area. There's about 140 structures. Now, one thing about that bridge there is you will find cars and motorbikes constantly on it. So you have to be very careful. Very interestingly enough, that opening is right near a strip mall. So I wonder why they built that opening by a strip mall. Who knows? Or as one lady said, I remember on a cruise, she said, why do they always build these ancient ruins so far from the cruise port? And I know you know that for 2 hours at the Bangkok. 3 hours back the other day, at least when I did it. So same thing here, there was a strip mall there. So we're going to take a look at that gray square first. All right, so there's some details about the walls, the height. Bastion, again, is just a point where you can defend the walls, the number of gates in the moat. You don't need me to read that, so All right, so this little diagram I came up with, I forgot to credit it because I don't remember where I got it. So you see, this blue line out here is the city citadel. This is the imperial area, and of course, purple, that's the forbidden area of the palace. Okay, that's pretty much what that says. And there's the information about the purple area. So we're going to start. We've come through that gate that I showed you before. On the left and the right side, you're going to see 2 groups of cannons. They're called the 9 Holy Cannons. They were commissioned and built during the reign of the founder, Jia Long. And they took about a year to build. And we'll take a look basically at kind of the scroll work that's on the cannon there in that picture. Now it's interesting because we're going to see they have names. All right, so there's some cannon facts in terms of length and diameter and weight. For the metric people, the length is 5.1 meters. The diameter is 0.23 meters. And the average weight is about 11,000 kilograms. So I did those conversions. So they're broken up into 2 groups. I believe coming out on the right is the 5 grouping. So there are 5 holy cannons there, and they have names. The English translation is on the left.
5 cái cannon.
The Vietnamese names are on the right. And they again borrowed from the Chinese. And each of those are named after a Chinese belief that the world is made up of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So anything in the world contains some mixture of that. And so that's how Jia Long named his cannons. Now the other 4, which is on the opposite side when you come in, all right, basically are named after 4 seasons. So you can see there, spring, summer, fall, winter, and the equivalent in Vietnamese for those terms. Now these holy cannons were never used. They strictly were decorative at that time. All right, so now we're going to start going into that beige area, the beige gold area that we were talking about. And we see the Nam Mon Gate, all right, sometimes called the Noon Gate. And this is the main gate into the city. It was built by Jia Long's son, Ming Mang, in 1833. And it was patterned after, has anybody been to Beijing? Have you been to the Forbidden City? Look a little familiar? Yes. It was patterned after the Meridian Gate in the Forbidden City in Beijing. Again, cultural appropriation. Now, what I want to look at is the colors of the roof. The one in the center basically is a yellow tile. The one on the left and the right are green tiles. You will always see that for the emperor, yellow is an important color. It's the color of royalty. And so the center section is basically the emperor section. The sections under the green tile roof are basically for lesser people. Mandarins would be one, for instance. So the upper pavilion there is very important. That is where the abdication took place at the end of the dynasty. Now, look at entrances. There's 3 entrances showing there. You're going to find out that number 3 shows up a great deal of the time as you go through here. So who do you think gets the center entrance?
King.
The emperor. So if there's a center entrance, a center door, a center stair of 3, that will be for the emperor and the emperor alone. Now, the word Mandarin basically translates into official. And you have 2 types of Mandarins. I've got some pictures later of statues of them. You have civil Mandarins, and they get to go through the left arch. You have military Mandarins, and they get to go through the right arch. Now, I said there were 5. I wasn't lying to you. On either side, there are 2 openings. There's one here, and then there's one on the opposite side. That's what other things get to go through. Horses, elephants, soldiers, and people. Okay, looking back again up at the top, the center section was like a viewing stand. If any special occasions took place, might have a foreign leader coming. All right, the two side pavilions again were for members of the court and other notables. And as I said, that was the abdication site. Okay, now we've gone through there, and we're going to work our way into the imperial city area. That's where all the administration took place. There are around this area 4 gates, and look for the openings in the blue line. So we see those openings, that's the 4 gates that allow admittance to it. 100 plus structures, nobody has an exact number. Let me just see if... I'm going to try this trick and see if it works. Take the stress off of it. Right now, it should not be. That shouldn't happen. So 100 plus structures. It's public. This is a public area for sure of the palace. All right, so when you walk in, you look up there where the red is, that represents the way you get into that area. You walk across the bridge. If you're going there, when you go to way, and take a look at the columns, because you're going to see dragons entwined around the columns. Some sculpturing of dragons around each of those columns on the entrance side of the walk and also on the opposite side. You'll also see the fact that they built a lake. So there is a lake that was built, especially in, I think it was 1933, the lake was built, that the walk goes over. So the other gateway is basically the same. And now this brings us to the Thai Home Palace, which I'm told translates into the Great Rites Court. You'll see it's 2 levels, right, the lower level and the upper level, and then behind that there is the Thai Home Palace. And this is where many of the public ceremonies took place. Now on either side of the lower section, you will see stelae, or just looks like a slab of stone, but it's a stelae. And that is a place marker for the mandarins. That tells them where they should stand during any ceremonies. And of course, it's driven by rank, whether you're a civilian leader or whether you're a military leader. Okay. Now, also on this lower one is this little pagoda there. Inside of it is an animal called a klin. They're made of bronze, and this comes from Chinese mythology. And a klin is said to be an animal with great longevity. It's said that they can live up to 2,000 years. So of course the emperor would like to associate himself with that type of an animal. Long life. And so the klin is one of 4 divine creatures. The other one being the phoenix, the dragon. We'll talk about the dragon in some detail, and the turtle. Now the turtle's interesting in this part of the world, because if you were to buy a turtle from a vendor and then free that turtle into the wild, you would get merit for doing that. And then I always think that the turtle vendors are probably waiting around the corner to take the turtle back. But you would still get your merit. All right, so there we see the palace. Okay, again, it's public palace, not the private palace. Geolong was the one who had it constructed. Again, the translation is Palace of the Supreme Harmony. So, what is it used for? Well, a couple of things. The emperor would hold court there, specifically the 1st and 15th day of the lunar month, not our calendar month. Secondly, solemn occasions, coronation, prince coronation, an ambassador receiving ceremony, the emperor's birthday, the emperor's anniversary, those types of ceremonies would take there. Now, why did he build it? Well, he built it because he wanted to show the power and importance of the Nguyen dynasty. Notice it's yellow on the roof. Now, when you look at some of these buildings, look to see if there's a dragon there. Because quite often you're going to find dragons on the ridge of the roof or possibly also at the corners of the roof, the ends of the ridge.
Dragon.
Why? Because, again, the dragon in Chinese culture is a symbol of power. And of course, that emperor wants you to think he's powerful, he has strength. It's also a symbol of good luck. So both the Chinese emperors and the Vietnam emperors used the dragon crocus leaf in their clothing, in their temples, in their buildings. Now we've walked inside. Now, what are the two most common colors you will find in Chinese temples, or in this case, in this palace? Red, the predominant color, and gold. Right? So, red is an important color because it's good luck, it's joy, it's good future, and you can see the great deal of red there. The columns were built of iron, something called ironstone. Then you can see the gold in the background as you're going towards the throne area. This area here, basically, if you look at this, I'll call it lattice work, basically you're going to see that's dragons created in a circular pattern. There are dragons chasing clouds on that column. Again, the repeating of the dragon theme, the power theme. There's 80 of those columns there. All right, so we're looking above. We see 3 Chinese figures. All right, and I'm told that those figures say Tai Ho Yen. All right, now between those, underneath and between here and here, those are poems that have been written for the honored position there. All right, now we're looking a little further back. We're looking where the throne for the emperor would be. Again, we're looking at that brocaded canopy above there with the circular dragon designs on it. Now, here's one of the entrance gates. The entrance gate here is very ornate. Notice again, how many entrances? 3. So again, the same thing. The emperor gets the center entrance. All right, now here's the first interesting pavilion. This is the tallest pavilion in the palace. There is no other one tall. It's called the Hien Lem, my pronunciation, pavilion. Translates into the Pavilion of Glorious Coming. It was built in 1824 by Min Mang, the son of Jia Long. It was designed to be a memorial to those people who devoted their lives to the establishment of the Nguyen dynasty. Now here's a wider panoramic view. And on the left-hand side, in the lower building, you will see there's a bell. On the right-hand side over there, you will see there's a drum. And then, of course, you see the center of the pavilion. Now, the bell and the drum were used for religious ceremonies. In the center, you're going to see an urn right there. There are a total of 9 of these urns. And we're going to talk about the significance of those urns now. Oh, that's what I jumped to. I wanted you to see 3 one more time. This is the opposite side of the pavilion. You'll see there 3 stairs going up. You will see 4 stair railings. All 4 are carved like a dragon. And of course, by now you know who goes up the middle one. Okay, we're back to the other one in the dynastic urns we want to talk about. Okay, they were built and placed. The one in the center there was for Geelong. Now the urns are set up in 2 rows. There's 8 in the back, 4 on either side of the center of the pavilion, and then the one for Geelong is in the center but moved forward. They were actually named posthumously for each of the emperors. They're not exactly identical. They will differ in their weight and their size, but more importantly, they differ in the decoration. So you will see on these urns, these little patterns, these little squares. These are pictures of different parts of Vietnam. So by looking at all 9 of these urns, you're getting kind of a view or an encyclopedia of Vietnam. They're in very good shape at this point in time. All right, there's a different view. We're looking over now to a different temple, and here you see the one for Geelong in the center. Now, this temple we're going to look at now, Tu Miu, is the next important temple that you should see there. Again, Ming Mang, the son of Geelong, was the one who had it constructed. They put 7 altars into it originally, and then they added some later. There's a good inside view looking down the altars. Again, you notice the red and the gold. The red proliferating. Now, what I didn't say was, what color dress do you think a Chinese girl wears to her wedding?
Red.
Red. Traditionally, it's red. Americans go, oh my God, a red dress to your wedding? Right, so you're right. It's correct, it's red, for good luck. And so here you see the proliferation of red. The ones I put here are the ones that were added at a later time. They kind of got themselves in a little bit of trouble and fell out of favor for a while. But notice there's not 13. All right, there's at that point. All right, so here's the one for Geelong. There's his altar. You'll see his picture there. You'll see a picture of his queens. He had 2 queens. So only the queen could create a royal heir. The consorts could not. All right, ladies, especially those of you who have had children, Geelong had 32 children, split up over 2 wives. All right? I can't think about it and figure out how tough that might have been, especially in those times, but he did. Okay, now we're going to kind of move inside real quickly into the purple area. Again, the emperor, his family, consorts, concubines, whatever word you want to use, eunuchs, and elders. The emperor had his private workspace, Khan Shakan, Khan Fakan was his private palace. His wife also had her own private area that she could go. Now, there were a lot of things within that area. Certainly in terms of building, you can see there's a lake there. But what was very interesting is it was a theater for performances. And there was a library. And here's a picture of what the theater looks like now. It was closed for a while, and in 1945, and now it's been reopened. And here's a look inside to see what it looks like, basically. Again, ironwood columns over there. Great use of red and gold again. Now, they said the ceiling was sky blue with figures of the sun, the moon, and the stars. When I looked at that and exploded it up so I could see it, I really didn't see any blue on the ceiling at this point. Square stage, very, very simple, no scenery. So again, the actors would have carried the play with their voice and with their motions. Now let's go to where all emperors must ultimately go, to their tombs. Now there's an interesting parallel here
Okay.
to where they put their tombs. Their tombs were always along the Perfume River west of the Imperial Palace.
Đông từ Đức.
And that has another interesting corollary. In ancient Egypt, tombs for rulers were always built on the west side of the Nile, not the east side. The palaces were on the east side, the tombs were on the west side.
Oh, that's nice.
In Egypt, when someone died, they said he went west,
He went west.
not that he died. People who were dying were sometimes known as Westerners. And so we see a similar thing here.
West.
Now why? There's actually a very good reason for this. And if you think about it, in the morning the sun comes up.
West.
It's the beginning of a new day, or the beginning of a new life. The sun comes up, moves up into the center of the sky, so the day is getting stronger. A child is getting stronger, grows, and becomes a man. Then what happens after 12? Well, the reverse process. Now aging sets in, and people get older, older, older. The day is getting cooler, cooler, cooler. The sun goes down, disappears, and when somebody gets too old enough, they die. So there's the analogy. The analogy worked in Egypt, and the analogy works basically here.
Oh, okay.
7 tombs, 13 rulers. Again, where are the rest of them? Will they ever find them? If you study Egyptology like I do, they're finding things all the time. Basically, you can hit a pick into the ground and probably find an ancient Egyptian relic in the Giza area or the Safaga area. Okay, again, it is a World Heritage Site. All right, here's the 4th emperor, Tuldak. Okay, you've got the details, so I won't read them to you. He had an empress, so he could have had an heir, but he was sterile. So he didn't have an heir, but he did have 300 helpers to keep him occupied.
Helper.
Helper.
All right, so this is usually the one they take you to Tuldak. And again, we're south of the palace. Now there is some symbolism that's a little more unique to the Vietnamese culture. And that is the fact that the ruler's legitimacy is kind of based on his ability to bring rain to the area. Now why do they need rain? Well, what's the staple of food in this area? It's rice. And to grow rice, you need water. So, the tomb is upstream from the city, which also enforces the idea that the ruler will be bringing water, and that a very important function. Now, Tuda didn't just build a tomb per se. He really built kind of an early palace, which then became a tomb later. He also was very good at what we might call feng shui, and that is the integration of his structures for his tomb/palace into the natural landscape. All right, so on the right you see kind of a diagram of his tomb complex. There are a number of different things. There's an enclosure wall. He was one of the first ones to put a wall around his tomb complex. You see a temple, it's right in this area here. The temple, here, the entrance is here. Then you see the tomb itself and a stelae pavilion. Then you had that pavilion I showed you that was on the water. That would be this gray box over here. And then there's always some other buildings that have some purpose. Okay, there's the wall. So if you were to walk around the wall, which your tour guide will not give you time to do, he wouldn't probably show you the wall. You will find that there are Chinese inscriptions around the wall. They fall into three categories: the longevity, good fortune, and then happiness, hope, and prosperity. So you'll find those engraved in the wall. Now here's one of my favorite things. This protective screen before you enter the wall. Again, there is another culture, the Balinese culture, which does the same thing. Now what do? Well, they believe that an evil spirit can only move in a straight line. Can't do a curve, can't make a right turn or a left turn. So if the entrance is here, and you block it with that stone monument, evil spirits cannot get in.
Oh.
Same would be true if you block the entrance to your house in a similar fashion. An evil spirit will never be able to enter your house. Again, custom that people have. Now initially they were very blank. I'll have another slide, you'll see that they started now to carve them at the time of Tudor. There's our friend, the dragon, one more time. Chinese orientation in terms of that. What was the role of the dragon? Well, one of the roles was during the non-monsoon season, he would go into the water and drink water, and drink water, and drink water, and drink water. And then during the monsoon season, he would come out and there would come the monsoon rains. Okay, there's a typical Vietnamese railing right there. Carved like a dragon, usually 5 claws at the bottom. This one is symbolically showing the dragon going through the clouds in the sky. And then going to the watery depth. The middle of the roof line, you're going to basically see 2 dragons and what's called the pearl. The pearl has been considered to be the moon. That symbolizes the moon. So what we're seeing there is that the dragons are trying to devour the moon. And the reason why they feel it's the moon, what happens during monsoon season? Great deal of rain day after day after day. Cloudy. At night, do you see a moon? No. Why? The dragon has swallowed it. What happens at the end of the monsoons? You get water coming down throughout the monsoon season. Again, that's where their mythology was developed. Okay, the interesting structures, and I'm going to move a little quicker, were basically how they built these temples. Now, at the time they built them, they weren't able to span this greater distance in a roof than we can today. So they built them in two sections, a front section and a rear section, and then they used this thing called a crab shell connector to connect them together. And they built them in what they call bays. Basically, if you look at 4 columns, that creates a bay. There were usually 7 or 9 bays in a tomb. So here's an example of looking at 2 duck. So we have the front section, and then behind that we have the second or larger section. It also was higher where the back section was, classic timber framing, again using ironwood. And here's just to show you how the bay numbering takes place when people look at it. So 2 duck had 9 bays. Now what's there? Well, 3 important things. 2 tables in green. The first one was an offering. Why do you build a temple? Well, you want people to come and honor you after your death. So they would come and place offerings on the first green table. The next one back, the second green table, basically has the effects of the emperor. And then finally in the back, the yellow one is a shrine. So here's kind of a picture of that. So I've put basically an identifier under it. So the table totally in the right is the offerings table. The table you'll see next in the center is the one for the effects of the emperor. And then the last one on the left is his throne in the back, the shrine to the emperor. And if we take a look at that, in that shrine, we see what they call spirit tables. All right, that is the object of veneration when someone comes to make offerings for the deceased emperor. And so there's a spirit table for the emperor, and in this case, there's a spirit table for his wife. Again, we see a commemorative plaque. That one I haven't been able to translate. There's a lot of ideograms in Chinese, to be sure. Now let's come to the last 2 things, and that is we're going to look at the stela and how that is. Right in the front of going to the stela, we'll see mandarins again. We have the military mandarins, and we have the civilian mandarins. And again, there's a set on each side. We also see here some animals towards the back. We see an elephant back there. Again, a symbol of power, the elephant. So that's why we see there. We see a horse. The horse represents wisdom, heaven. The statues here are just about life size in terms of that period of time. And again, you'll tell the difference between a civilian versus a military one by how they're dressed. Civilians generally will hold a tablet. Military mandarins will generally hold a sword. All of the mandarins that you will see there all have distinct and unique facial features. So they must have copied them from somebody or someone. All right, now we come to, you'll see that's the pavilion there. There you see an elephant. You see 2 obelisks. Interesting, again, they're taking that from the Egyptian culture. Now, the pavilion for 2 duck was actually built out of concrete. It was unique. It was one of the first times that was done. It was a breaking with tradition. All right, now we're a little bit closer. And in the center, you can see the stela right here. And it's just a piece of carved stone. But what's on that carved stone, is very interesting. It was written by Tudak. He sat there, and this Paul had a stream of consciousness as he was approaching the end of his life. And he basically documented his life. What were the good things he did? What were the bad things he did? What was it that he couldn't accomplish? And that all went onto that stela, carved into it. It's about 20 tons of stone right there. Now, normally that's done by a son, as opposed to the person who is going to be honored by the stela. Okay, now we're going to go into the actual place where his body was interred. Now, the Yuan dynasty emperors interred their dead two different ways. Some of them in a tomb in the side of a hill, and others in a stone sarcophagus. So again, here's our screen wall from the back side, blocking the evil spirits from coming in. And there's kind of, again, that side view again. And there's an example of the carving that they're doing now. So dragons in a circular pattern. And there we see his tomb, right there. So we assume, I don't think the Vietnamese have ever dug it up to see if it's true, that he was in that sarcophagus inside of this wall. And that's where he's been since he died. Now there's another wall outside of it. And what they believe is that that corridor you're seeing between the innermost wall to where the sarcophagus is and the wall on your left would be used for religious purposes. Possibly on the anniversary, people would walk around it, possibly saying prayers. They don't know for sure, but that is what they feel it might have been used for. So I'm going to thank you again, as I did the other day, for coming to the presentation. I hope if you're going to Imperial Way, it'll give you some of the ideas about what you see, also some of the things that you may not see. I found over the years that tour guides all have their little ways that they like to go, because they know their speeches down cold.
Go on. The well. Nothing.
Whale là cá ông hả? Cái kêu có cái tiếng nói của nó.
Tiếng nói ghê quá.
The whales have dived deep into the ocean and out of our sight. This was only the beginning of our most epic maritime adventure yet.
I got a little bit. I know. He's like, go much less, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll try back on the boat. You're like, Anthony, don't go. I was like, come on, no, don't stay by the boat. I was like,
Giết người.
Rồi, không giết người. Rồi, chỉ ăn cá, ăn tép thôi, ăn tép thôi.
Con cá sạc với cái con này con có dấu này, chấm nè. Con này ở bên Philippines nó có đó. Nhớ ông Kỳ đó ăn với Jenny.
Cái gì cái đó có voi luôn hả? Cái sạc? Có voi hả?
Có voi. Con này sạc quá, con này sạc à. Con này nó gọi cái gì sạc á, nó có cái tên.
Không phải sạc đâu, sạc nó không dám bơi gì đâu. Đấy.
Nó có một cái loại sạc. Cái con cá này kỳ đó, ở bên Philippines.
They're drawn to the Hebrides' plankton-rich waters, where they remain close to the surface to feed. They filter around 1.5 million litres of water every hour, trapping the tiny creatures in their extensive gill rakers. The island's inlets, known as lochs, also provide a food source for many animals, including Europe's largest bird of prey. White-tailed eagles have a wingspan approaching 2.5 meters.
White-tailed eagle.
Their eyes are larger than humans, and like the golden eagle, their vision is far sharper than our own. Each of their eyes has 2 centers of focus. They can see forwards and sideways at the same time. From an altitude of 300 meters, they can pinpoint a shoal of fish within an area of almost 8 square kilometers. This bird has locked onto its target and prepares to swoop in. Also known as a sea eagle, the white-tailed eagle's diet includes a great deal of fish. During the breeding season, it's the most important food. Young chicks have big appetites. White-tailed eagles usually lay 1 or 2 eggs, so twins are common. The young remain in the nest for around 10 weeks before they fledge.
Ăn fish thì con ăn hay quá.
Parents use the same nest for several years. The collection of sticks can end up weighing as much as a small car, almost 1,000 kilograms.
Thôi học đi không? Học.
On another island in the outer Hebrides lie a number of clues to the existence of
Anh nhà quay này. Gì?
Cái này nhiều quá trời.
Oyster.
The isle of Lewis and Harris contains some of the earliest evidence of humans inhabiting the Hebrides.
Có những cái island mà đi không được đó. Quay này coi.
Point to woodlands being razed to the ground by Neolithic herders to allow their deer to graze. Today the island remains virtually treeless. While certain clues to early settlers lie deep beneath the surface, in one location is a monument that towers above the rest. The standing stones at Kalanish were erected around 4,000 years ago. They were old, long before Rome was heard of. "13 stones, averaging 4 meters tall, form a circle 13 meters across. They surround an even taller central monolith. Legend has it that giants who once lived on the island were turned to stone as a punishment for refusing to convert to Christianity. The stones are also said to receive a ghostly visitation on the dawn of the midsummer.
Unique.
These windswept coastal plains consist of calcium-rich shell sand that is highly fertile and free-draining. The Rishon gneiss, which makes up the region's bedrock, doesn't erode easily. This means that rivers flowing to the coast carry very little sediment, which keeps the Macaire sands free of bulky organic matter. These are the most fertile soils on the islands, and have always influenced the location of human settlements. Around 20,000 people live on the island today. Just offshore, some of Europe's most elusive creatures have also set up home here. Despite their name, common seals are quite rare. Their grey cousins outnumber them by a ratio of 6 to 1. At just under 2 meters in length, they're smaller than the grey and prefer to bask on rocks and secluded inlets. Common seals travel up to 50 kilometers to feed, and often remain at sea for several days. They can dive underwater for up to 10 minutes and reach depths of more than 50 meters. These coastal inlets are also home to one of the world's most secretive freshwater mammals. The Hebrides is home to the densest population of otters in northwest Europe. At high tide, they feed in the island's food-rich coastal waters. The otters rely on the sea for the majority of their food, but they still need fresh water to wash away the salt and keep their coats waterproof. They spend most of their time on dry land. Local folklore tells tales of otter kings, who were accompanied by 7 black otters. When captured, these beasts would grant any wish in exchange for their freedom. The Shant Isles lie 6 kilometers off the coast of Lewis and Harris. The surrounding waters are famed for another legend. The Blue Men of the Minch are said to have inhabited underwater caves. Sailors were fearful of passing through this stretch of water, as they believed that merman-type creatures would lure them to their deaths. For many years, the Shans sustained a small population of around 30 people. However, the last residents abandoned the islands over a century ago. These isolated isles are built entirely from hexagonally jointed basalt columns. They're part of the same ancient lava flow that formed the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland 60 million years ago. The magma cooled rapidly, forcing it to crystallize and form these giant geometric shapes. Standing 120 meters tall, these spectacular columns dwarf their Irish counterparts. The island's grassy cliffs are the breeding home to an estimated 80,000 pairs of Atlantic puffins. These enigmatic birds live a solitary life out at sea for most of the year. During summer, they congregate in immense numbers. Puffins choose the same mating partner for life, and reunited couples reuse last season's nesting burrow. Sand eels are the staple diet for a newly hatched chick. Both parents take turns fishing. Feeding areas can range up to 100 kilometers offshore, so several fish are caught on each trip. Their tongues hold anything they catch against spines in their palate. This leaves the bill free to capture more fish. Puffins are small birds, standing just 18 centimeters tall and weighing around 500 grams. They are the perfect meal for an aerial predator more than 3 times their size. Great black-backed gulls are opportunistic hunters that steal and scavenge most of their food. They're the largest of all gulls, and will hunt and kill any creatures smaller than themselves. This one has locked onto its target. The puffin stands little chance against the gull's aggression, strength, and endurance.
Ôi ôi, vài những cái sự này.
Many partners never return from their fishing trips. The Chantiles may be isolated, but their location between the inner and outer islands doesn't quite make them remote. To the far west of the outer islands sits the most hostile and isolated archipelago of all. A legendary land where people eat birds. St. Kilda is by far the remotest of all the Hebridean islands.
Out.
Lying 160 kilometers from the mainland, the archipelago was formed around 60 million years ago through volcanic activity. It contains the highest sea cliffs in Britain, which face some of the harshest stone that the Atlantic Ocean has to offer. climate is generally cool, with mist and showers dampening the islands at all times of the year. It's thought that people arrived at St Kilda as early as the Bronze Age. These visitors brought with them one of the world's most primitive forms of sheep. "4,000 years later, the Soay sheep are still here. They're smaller than domestic sheep, but hardier and far more agile. Unlike their relatives, Soay sheep shed their coats naturally, so don't require shearing. Their extraordinary long reign on the islands is in part down to the fact that they don't herd together like ordinary sheep. When startled, they separate and scatter in all directions, making their capture difficult for predators. Around 2,000 Soay sheep roam St Kilda today. Iron Age houses, a testament to people setting up permanent home around 2,000 years ago. This line of continuous habitation came to an abrupt end just over 80 years ago. For centuries, people survived by eating the island's vast supply of seabirds.
Seabird.
St Kilda's cliffs are home to some of the largest populations of seabirds in the world.
Hay quá.
Because fishing the Atlantic stormy seas was too dangerous, people turned to an alternative supply of
Hay quá, con mấy này nè.
gannets, fulmars, and puffins made up the majority of their diet. Each resident ate on average 115 fulmars every year. Puffins became an everyday snack, just like a packet of crisps. But this source of food was seasonal. The birds only used St Kilda to nest. At the end of summer, the islanders' cliffs became bare. In 1930, following food shortages and disease, the last 36 residents of St Kilda were evacuated to the mainland.
Hay ghê.
Over 60,000 pairs of gannets still return to St Kilda each spring. It's the largest colony in the world. Although people no longer pose a threat to the seabirds, some of their own have taken to piracy.
Hay quá.
Great skuas arrived on St Kilda around 50 years ago. Gannets are much larger than these